spank them, and then what they're going to do, they will grow up and they will spank their girlfriends and boyfriends, and then later on their kids? Yes, you are. Actually, I'm sorry, but they are born with an empty book, and we write it in it, and you're writing violence in it. I'm so sorry. My son, I have a son. Wonderful kid. Never have to spank him, never once in this world.
You know what, Tyra, there's a huge difference, a huge gap between spanking, violence, and beating. I mean, we're talking about a disciplinary tap on the hand, tap on the butt, that it's just meant to get the point across. It's not meant to hurt. And I was spanked, like I said, my mom gave me my share of spanking, and I deserved it. And I don't think I ever spanked anybody other than my child on the butt, and that's it. I'm not a violent
what about
person.
you? You're pro-spanking?
Well, yes, I am, and I'm Dominican, and I have 3 kids. I have a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 12-year-old. One day, my daughter's teacher, my 12-year-old, she calls me from school, and she tells me, Mr. Molson, Elaine is here with a shirt in school saying, who needs to work with an ass like mine? And I'm like...
The girl, your daughter had that shirt on?
She had that shirt on.
Who needs to work with an ass like mine?
I had sent her to school with her uniform, and she changed her clothes in school. Excuse me. And then the teacher tells me, would you mind coming to school and meeting up with your daughter so you could see for your own eyes? So she's there, and she's talking with the boys, and they're like, yes, Elaine, you do have a big butt. And I'm like, yeah, Elaine, I see your big butt. She turned around, and she's like, oh, Mommy, right away. She's like, come on, let's go home. She's like, Mommy, don't. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna. I've never disrespected my daughter in front of anyone in the street, would never hurt her. I drove her home, I took her shirt off, and with the same shirt, I whipped her. I'm like, you know why I'm hitting you with this shirt? Because I'm gonna make your ass bigger, you know, by why? By anybody out there will come. What about wouldn't have been one of those teenagers? What about it would have been one of those guys outside when my daughter's coming out of school, and they'd be like, Elaine, oh, let me see your ass. These are kids. We need to teach our kids out of dangerous way. So I get her home and spank her. And you know what? Not only that, I explained to her why I was hitting her.
This is why I beat your ass, is because you don't need to Okay. In all seriousness, we do have the assistant professor of English and Africana Studies at Bucknell University, Dr. James Braxton Peterson.
Hello. Okay. Now, we're talking about spanking in connection to race.
Yes. And we hear it in a joking way all the time, especially with people of color. Black people say, oh, we beat our kids. White people let the little kid run around the store. Talk to us about the history of spanking when it comes to race. Is there a history?
There definitely is a history. There's a history of corporal punishment in America in general, but obviously the complexities that we have in this conversation here show there's some differences amongst race, but also class, gender, and religion. But for the racial piece, we can look at corporal punishment and go all the way back to the history of slavery and see that certain practices of violence and whipping and beating sort of normalized corporal punishment for certain communities in the South, but also for African-American communities. So, yes, some of that stuff is a holdover. I'm concerned a little bit about the gung-ho sort of nature about spanking, because we do have to make that distinction between abusive stuff and sub-abusive stuff. That's very, very important. What we're talking about here is just spanking, slapping, and hitting as a means of trying to rear our children. We are not talking about beating, using wooden spoons, using belts, or those things of that nature. We really need to draw that distinction there. I think the women over here also have something to say that's very, very important, which is there are other ways of rearing our children, there are other ways of responding to them and helping them to respond to us as parents, and we need to find the balance, because if you're beaten every day, that's not as effective as balancing out with some of the more verbal techniques that we can use to
What about in terms of, in the study it said 94% of black women believe beating. Does that go way back into slavery of black people getting beaten?
The black community's commitment to spanking goes back to that, yes.
It's a strong commitment.
It's a strong commitment because, listen, those things are passed on. So my grandfather's father or my great-grandmother who was born a slave, those things get passed on.
Because she was beaten by her master?
No, it's not about that. It's because the stakes are higher in terms of obedience. So she needs for her son to obey her because, unfortunately, her son will probably be more likely to be incarcerated than your son will. That's just the facts. And those statistics have been with us since slavery, of course. So racial things, unfortunately, affect that. Class things also affect that. And also gender. You notice we all have women here?
Yes.
Girls are also spanked more often than boys are. One of the indicating factors is did your parents spank, right? Obviously women are going to spank a little bit more if they are spanked a little bit more.
Shy, you're an African-American woman, and you're on the side that do not believe in spanking.
I don't spank my
Explain
children.
that.
I don't spank my children. There's so much more that you can do in regards to, now in this day and age, they have iPods, they have phones, they have this, they have that.
Take away the
If you take that away from them, their whole life collapsed. My 6-year-old broke the window. I took his Xbox, his PlayStation, his TV, his toys. His whole life collapsed around him. He's miserable. I didn't have to spank him. He broke the window. He knew he wasn't supposed to play with the ball in the house, but he broke the window and said, Mommy, it was an accident. It wasn't an accident. Watch me take your stuff away. And he's on punishment to this day. And his words before I left was, am I still on punishment? Yes, you're on punishment till Friday. I'm sorry, Mommy, I won't break the window again. I didn't have to raise my hand or hurt my hand to teach him a lesson. He had to know that he was wrong. I took his stuff away.
Now let's talk about something else. It's the because I said so. Do you guys know that?
Yes.
And this is another thing that you hear like cross-culturally that I've heard even some black women say, I don't understand these white women with their kids saying, you know, the kid asks, well, why do I have to do that? And then they explain. And, you know, I'm a black woman and I'm going to say because I said so. So what do you guys think? Do you guys do the because I said so?
No, absolutely.
I don't. I do.
I do.
You do it as an Asian woman.
As an Asian, we learn to be respectful to our parents, to be respectful to teachers, to our elders, to authority.
Obedience
and
is very much respected in your
very much so. If my father said this shirt is black, guess what? This shirt is black. This shirt is not red.
So it's because I said so.
Because he says so, then it is so.
Who explains when they question?
I explain.
Give me an example.
I explained to my son why he couldn't play with the ball because it would break stuff. And my goal is to make sure your needs are met. If you're going to break my apartment, you're going to do something about it. So he knew that he wasn't supposed to throw the ball, so he's on punishment now. And he's miserable because he can't play games.
Yeah, I think that there's a place for both. I think sometimes you don't have time to explain. So you say, I said so. And yeah, that line should be respected. If it's black, it's black. I agree with that. But at the same time, if you add to that an explanation thereafter and say, this is why I did it, you know what? That's only going to help. It's not going to harm. Just like, you know, let me just get back to one thing. Your daughter hid the fact that she ran out of the house with that shirt on, and then you went back and you hid the fact that you beat her in the house.
I did not beat her. It's a big difference. I spanked her. Because I would have hit her, she would have been crying to death, and I didn't. You know what happened? She was like, you know what, Mommy? It's true. She came back from her room and she told me, Mommy, you know it's true. The boys were even trying to touch my butt. She analyzed after I explained to her why I hit her. She came back and she apologized. No.
She shut up.
Oh, so you do the double. So you don't say I told you so.
No, I don't.
You hit her and then you explain why.
I explained to her so she would know.
She's got a hybrid thing working over here.
Don't explain to them why you were spanking them.
No,
some of them don't explain. If you don't explain why you're spanking them.
Up next, will they thank you when they're older?
She did the, I will deal with you when I get in the house. She did one of those, and then I got spanked. But now, I respected her because of that.
Still to come, do your kids know right
I never steal from people.
from wrong?
I can't tell my mom did.
Very, very heated debate today. Should you spank or not spank your kids? Do you explain to them why they are wrong, or do you just say, because I said so? Dr. James, I know you have something else that you want to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the because I said so is very similar to what we were talking about before, which is there are certain communities, whether you're poor or you're black, where you don't have time to explain and the stakes are really high. So you can't always go into explanations in specific situations as to why the child cannot do what they're supposed to be doing. So you have to have that kind of authoritarian relationship with your children because the stakes are just a little bit higher. And again, as children get older, children of color and poor children are more prone to be punished more severely by our society. So I mean, until we're going to change that, we have to kind of make that happen. Now, one other thing, there's a challenge for us also because people of color are going to also have their kids put in foster care more regularly and more immediately because of these things. That's why I said because of the beating, yes, because we have all these cultural misperceptions about spanking and about who spanks and who doesn't spank. Black people spank harder and this, that, and the other. Those cultural